What is the home of football? I bet a lot of you think it's Wembley, mostly because of all the fake news like this that is on the internet. But did you know they started building Wembley in 1922, a full 50 years after the first international football match? The FA Cup was formed in the 1871-72 season and was played all around the country at times, but it had one traditional old home during the formation of the competition. That stadium is still around today, and in this video we are going to be investigating the real home of football. Funny how we were passing by Wembley to get to the predecessor of the home of football. Wembley wasn't even called Wembley when it was first built, it was called the Empire Stadium. It hosted its first ever FA Cup final in 1923, and the first ever FA Cup winners there? Bolton Wanderers. I've got to stop before the Oval, because if you look at the history of the stadium that we're going to, it is the Kennington Oval as it's known as. So let's get off one before and walk down. We got time. Okay people, here we are, look at this, look how traditional that looks. You wouldn't even necessarily know it was a stadium from right here, but this place, this video has got me written all over it. Obviously the cricketing history here is out of this world, but so is the football history. This is where England played their first ever internationals, and actually it's where the first ever international football match was played. The first unofficial one, that is. The first that's officially recognised by FIFA was in November of 1872. We've covered that story a lot, and that was in Glasgow. That was the first officially recognised international football match. But there were a handful, as you can see on screen right now, of unofficial internationals that were played right here between Scotland and England. They don't count as official football matches because the Scottish players, the Scottish team was made up of Scottish players already based in London. So it wasn't like they had organised it in Scotland and come down for it. They were already in London, probably working here. But England's first official football match was here. Not at Wembley, not at Crystal Palace, which is very, very historic as well, which we'll get into later. But their first official match was here, again, against Scotland. And their first ever match, not against Scotland, was here as well, against Wales. I saw the plaques just out here to the Test cricket and the Ashes and stuff. Is there a plaque about any other football stuff anywhere? Because this is where England played their first.
England played their very first FA Cup here, you're right.
Yeah, here we go, we're in. Dan?
Nice to meet you.
Sam, yeah, nice to meet you, mate. Are you a football fan, cricket fan, bit of both?
More cricket fan.
Is this the county championship? Is that like the equivalent of like the Premier League or the FA Cup?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, Premier League.
So
they're champions currently now, are they?
currently, yeah, they won the last
Three in a row.
seasons.
So Surrey are like the Man City of cricket
Kind
right
of.
now. So you're telling me that's Rory Burns?
Yeah.
Is he the Surrey captain?
Surrey captain.
Is he England captain?
He has played for England, but he's never been England captain.
Right, and then that's the women's captain up there, you say?
Yeah, that's the women's Surrey captain.
And so is this the most historic cricket ground in England, or would that be Lord's?
It would be Lord's.
Lord's. Here it is, the Kennington Oval, the place where English football began. It's where England played their first internationals. It's where Wanderers won the first ever FA Cup, and there's someone really significant I'll introduce you to shortly when it comes to them. The old famous clubs of the past like Old Etonians, Royal Engineers, and even Oxford University won the FA Cup here. Blackburn Olympic, the first non-amateur team to win the FA Cup, won it here. Blackburn Rovers won their first cup here, as did Aston Villa, West Brom, Preston. That first officially recognised game that England played here, though, they beat Scotland 4-2 on the 8th of March of 1873. A women's hockey match was televised here in 1938. This was the first match in any team sport ever to be televised by the BBC as a trial for broadcasting the Oval Test later that year. It's currently home to the Surrey County Cricket Club. It's owned by the Duchy of Cornwall, so Prince William. It can hold a capacity of 27,500 people and was built in 1845, meaning it is 180 years old. Whilst Wembley will have recently just celebrated its centenary, this place will be gearing up for its double centenary in just 20 years. So you'll have to excuse the reflection. This is Charles Alcock, who was secretary of Surrey County Cricket Club from 1872 to 1907. He was also part of the FA, which is why the FA Cup was played here. So we've got that man to thank for football really being organised in those early days in England, being played here. But look at this, what a gaff. Not only was he secretary, he also played in the first FA Cup final and captained Wanderers to the first ever FA Cup final win.
We've got a picture here of Charles Alcock, who was the secretary of Surrey for 20 years. He was also secretary of the FA, and as Sam has pointed out,
The first FA Cup winning captain of all time.
Thank you. Wow. That's very good to know.
So they're the urns to symbolise the ashes that were
that's
burnt
right,
here.
yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. And then it was finally time to see what I've been hoping to find. A plaque to commemorate the first ever FA Cup final and a further 21 finals that were contested at the Oval. I absolutely love stuff like this. We saw all the EFL founder plaques recently for a video. I'll leave a link to that at the end so you can continue watching. Yeah, that's exactly what we wanted. The Wanderers beat the Royal Engineers 1-0, and it was Charles Alcock who was the captain that day, the geezer whose photo we saw upstairs. Wow, that's history. The first ever England-Scotland game. There we go. A game was played previous year in Glasgow, 1873. Newly formed Scottish Football Association going forward rail fares to London for 8 players. So the team included 3 Anglo-Scots who had played in an earlier unofficial series. England won the match 4-2. Look at that at the Kennington Oval. There was no goal net, so it was just like a rope, two posts. Wow. So these are the groundsmen that have...
from 1845 right the way through, and today we've still got Lee Fortis.
Speaking of the groundsmen, our tour guide thinks that it was because of, well, looking at the FA Cup finals list, it looks like the attendance figures jumped massively from when it moved from here to Crystal Palace, which is why I thought they moved it from here to Crystal Palace to get more money and to get more revenue and to sell more tickets. But I think he was telling me that after 20 or so years of having the FA Cup final here, it was cutting up the pitch so much they didn't have time to get it ready for the summer for the cricket. MI6 building you might recognise from James Bond, London Eye.
We've got football here for Sam.
So they've got a picture of Jeff Hurst scoring his hat-trick goal in the World Cup final, but obviously the first ever international, the first recognised one, not the unrecognised ones, but the first recognised one in Scotland finished 0-0, despite both teams having 7 attackers each. But England's first international goal was scored right here, not right here, but just over there somewhere. The game's first goal, England's first ever international strike, was scored just after 1 minute by William Kenyon Slaney, of all people. Many vital goals have been scored since then, but Jeff Hurst's third against Germany is undoubtedly the most famous. So yeah, not just England's first ever international goal was scored here, but the first international goal in the history of football was scored here. Think of Iniesta's World Cup final goal, think of all of Messi's goals, think of all of Ronaldo's goals, think of Ildefonso Lima, the world record holder for the longest international career. He's the highest scorer in Andorra's history. We were chatting to him last week, all of the goals that have been scored in international football, and the first one was scored right here. The first ever rugby match between England and Scotland was played in Edinburgh, won 1-0 by Scotland. The rematch in 1872 was held at the Oval. Thanks to the work of the great C.W. Alcock, we saw his picture earlier, the Oval is also the home of the FA Cup final. The first ever final was staged here, 1872, Wanderers beating Royal Engineers. A further 21 finals, 1874 to 1892, the year of Liverpool's formation, when West Brom beat Villa 3-0 in a Midlands derby. Look at this, imagine having a bevy in the summer, overlooking that. During the stadium tour of this cricket ground, I was just looking for football items and little memories of the past, and in the museum they had even more, just talking about first rugby internationals and England internationals and the birthplace of the FA Cup, and more about Charles Alcock. Of course, the Ashes was formed here, and it was just touching on a lot of the kind of stuff that we'd already seen throughout the stadium tour. But here comes my cricketing claim to fame. I bet none of you were expecting this today. My claim was met with a little bit of skepticism. I don't think my fellow stadium tourers quite believed me, but I was in Wisden 2006. Yes, your boy Footy Adventures has featured in cricket's most famous publication.
Harder to find.
Do you know where to find it?
I think it's the first like 20 pages or something, I'm sure. Let's have a look.
You'll be more likely to recognise yourself.
We've only got 5 minutes.
It could be in here somewhere. There I am. Page 29. Winter's coming, but it's still cricket season in the playground at Lord William School in Oxfordshire, and that's me there.
Come have a look, and you're going to take photos of me.
I'm probably the worst cricketer to ever appear in Wisdom. There you go.
Thank you.
Claim to fame.
I'm glad you
Well
found
done, Lucas.
So yeah, that was interesting. The Hobbs Gate outside of the place which is really the home of modern football and modern sport as we know it. CW Alcock was a part of Surrey County Cricket Club and thought, they're not using this place during the winter. Let's play the FA Cup final here. And then 21 finals later, they moved it. They played replays in Manchester and I think Derby was the first place outside of London they played an FA Cup final. See you later, Dan. Really enjoyed that, mate. And then, yeah, there was FA Cup finals played all over the country until eventually they moved it to Crystal Palace. And then when Wembley was built in the 1920s, it's been there ever since, except from the odd few years at the Millennium Stadium and stuff. But yeah, this is one of the most historical places in world football. Wow, what a place. Anyway, it feels like the first day of spring today. There is no better city than London to sit outside on the street and have a pint on a nice sunny day. Here is to the Kennington Oval, the first 21 of the very first FA Cup finals, to CW Alcock, and to the pioneers of football who, without the stadium just round the corner, we wouldn't have football as we have it today, and sport all around the world. Rugby, hockey, baseball, football, cricket, loads of sports have their foundations in that place around the corner. So here's to them. Here's to you for watching. I did a video recently where I visited all 12 EFL founders, and Mr. Alcock from round the corner reminds me a little bit of William McGregor, who was the first man to really come up with the notion of the Football League. So if you want to learn more about that and the 12 clubs that began league football in England, then watch the video that is on screen right now. Really appreciate you all once again. Thank you so much for watching. Love videos like this. Love the history of football in this country.